In this video tutorial, I'm going to go over the steps for finishing up a story, finishing up a video edit, and exporting it in the proper format. This is all tailored toward our Grady News Source workflow here at Grady College, so it fits our video specs, the same resolution and codec. So if you're kind of working on something outside of these class requirements, it might not apply, but for our students in the video journalism and the Grady News Source, this will apply. So I'm using the very specific format for that newscast and for those video classes. So I've got Premiere all opened up, and I just need to make sure I've got the right timeline open. Make sure you have the timeline actually selected, that panel or that window. It's going to have the blue highlight around it, and that means it's the active window, and we're ready to go. I do check a couple of things first. Overall quality control, sure, you always do that. Check that your audio levels are right, your video edits are smooth, your titles are in place, and everything's clean. You don't have any gaps or flash frames in the timeline. It's a nice, neat sequence. So I look at that, and then I check this little strip at the top called the work area in Premiere. This is tricky because if it is stretched out way beyond my footage in the sequence, Premiere might export something that looks a lot longer. It's going to add on those extra seconds of just blank video at the end. Conversely, if a work area is way too short, let's say it ends right here, like partway through the middle of a soundbite, well, Premiere may only export this part of the package or this part of the sequence, and we get a truncated file that's not complete. So just make sure the work area stretches across the complete length of your content in the timeline. No farther, not shorter. Make sure it's there. You might even have it turned off. You can turn the work area on and off. Manage it the way you see fit. But if it is there on display, check it first. Now I'm ready to do my export. I've got the playhead right at the front. I like to do that by habit. And then I want to bring up the export settings. And I do this by the keyboard shortcut. I always advocate that. And I use the Command M, it's the shortcut, and I think of it this way. It's Command Media, M for media, because I'm about to do a media export. So Command M, I'm going to command the media export, and that's going to bring up my Premiere export window. This is like a little part of media encoder that lives within Premiere Pro. A real fast way to export right out of the timeline. So I'm checking the upper corner for my settings. H.264 is the codec, the encoding format we want to use, H.264. Nothing else. Make sure that is selected. If it's not, drop down the menu and find it. It's right there. Second step is to check the preset. This will be the frame rate and the resolution that we're using. And this needs to match our playback system for Grady News Source and our video journalism classes. So on the drop-down menu, I have a preset loaded called Grady News Source. So I select that. And if you're using the files that I gave you early in the semester to copy, you should have a setting like that. If you don't see it, if it's not on your laptop, on your edit system, just go to the drop-down menu, scroll down. There's a bunch of different formats, and you don't want to get lost trying to manually pick it out, or guessing, I should say. Here's what you're looking for if you have to go down to this big drop-down list. Just go down to HD 720p 2997, and then you'll have it. You'll have HD footage going out 720p and in the right frame rate. So just pick that, and now you have the top two settings are going to be fine. Then you've got to tell Premiere where to send this file once it's all packed together into a little MP4 container. I need to give it a name and send it to a destination. So I click that little blue link, and it pops me up back to my computer, and it says which folder, where do you want to store this file. So I'm going to go back to my Premiere Edit projects, and I'm doing this is an old one I'm just redoing from 2017 in the month of February. So I'm just looking back here, and I'm going to tell Premiere to send it with, I'll give it a new name, just Chris Test. That's what I'm going to call it, and it's going to go back into this master folder system for the story. It's the story about the organic farmer, and all my other imports and odds and ends were in there. But since this is now an export, I have that folder 005 exports, and I've done this several times obviously, so let's call it Chris Test 2, and it's going to be exported and the file saved just back into the same folder with all my other video exports. Now I'm at the end of that story process for the export. I should put this there. All right, so we'll hit save, and then after all those attributes are selected, I just simply click the export tab, and it'll take a little time. Depends on the hardware on your computer, how much horsepower you have, also the length of the sequence that you're exporting will play a big factor. So while that's happening, I'm just going to minimize the screen and look back at the destination to show you where this file is actually going to end up. Back here in my Premiere Edits, 2017, it was month of February, Organic Farmer. Video exports, right? See what's happening? This is in progress. Chris test number 2. Premiere right now is exporting out the audio stream, the AAC, and the video stream as 2 files, and then when it's done, it's going to wrap them together and put them in a little MP4 container. So it'll end up, we won't see these 2 separate files. It'll wrap itself up. So in just a matter of seconds, we'll see that happen. Here it goes. It's just finishing, and now it's there. Chris test number 2.mp4. That's just how I named it, and when I open the file up, it's exactly the story from my timeline from start to finish, and it's all there. So I would do one last quality control check there, and then I could go to the server for the class that I'm turning it in and then drop it right there. So always export the video back to yourself, back into your video exports for whatever story you're working on. That way you'll have the full finished file tucked away, and it will be within that same folder structure as all the other elements to your story. So it'll be nice and neat, and you'll be finished, and you'll get it in the right place, and hopefully a really good grade at the end of all of this.